Okay, on this video, we are going to take a look at numbers 26 through 28, and so this gets more into the graphing of some of these problems. So let me start with a few reminders about graphing. So remember when we're working with sine, we have zeros at 1, 3, and 5, and we're going to go up first. So these are the ones where you make the 5 little tick marks. And then with cosine, we're going to have zeros at 2 and 4, and cosine starts up. Let me see if I can draw a little picture of our parent function here. So sine is going to be at 1, 3, and 5 and go up first. So just a little sketch before we start moving them around. So this would be 2 pi over here, 2 pi, and this would be pi right here. And then for cosine, we're going to have zeros at 2 and 4 and start up. Let me see if I can squeeze a little picture in over here. So cosine starts up and goes down through 2 and back up through 4 like that. And then with tangent, remember when you graph tangent, you want to start by doubling the period and then put zeros at 1, 3, and 5 and asymptotes at 2 and 4. So tangent kind of looks like this. We'll have an asymptote at 2 and 4, and then we start by going up, and then we go down and up and down again. All right, and then also let me remind you that our starting point is going to be the same thing as the phase shift. So if there's not a starting point, if there's none, then we're going to start at 0 pi. And then to find the two endpoints, I'm going to take that starting point that was my phase shift, and I'm going to add the period to it, and I'm going to subtract the period from it. And that'll give me an endpoint on each side. All right, so on number 26, we're going to start by graphing this y equals negative 2 cosine of x plus pi over 2 minus 1. So let me start by filling in some of that information that we were doing on the last video, like for example the amplitude. Remember that your amplitude is always positive, but because we have that negative in front of it, I'm going to make a little note to myself to reflect that over the x-axis. So rather than starting up on this one, I'm going to start down. Then I've got the period. The period for cosine, I'm going to take 2 pi and put it over my b value, which will be the number right here. Since there's not one, that's just like having a little 1 sitting right there, so a period of 2 pi on this one. I do have a phase shift on this one. The phase shift is going to be this in the opposite direction from what you would think, so this is going to be left pi over 2. And then the vertical shift is going to go with this number right here, the direction you would think, so that's going to be down 1. All right, so let me get a graph paper going here. I'll make this kind of big. All right, and I'm going to start by marking my phase shift. Grab a highlighter so I can mark that vertical shift as well. So I'm going to start by marking my phase shift at left pi over 2. So left pi over 2 I'm going to put right here. And don't forget to go ahead and call that negative pi over 2 right there. So that's going to be my starting point. I'm going to go ahead and mark my vertical shift as down 1. So I'm going to put that right here at negative 1. And I'm going to put a little line right there just to help me remember to move all of my 0 points down 1. So this is going to be my new 0 line right here. All right, so when I talk about putting zeros for cosine at 2 and 4, I'm going to put them on that green line. So it's not an asymptote. It just kind of helps me remember to work there. All right, so to find my endpoints, I'm going to take my negative pi over 2, my starting point, and I'm going to add 2 pi. So negative pi over 2 plus 4 pi over 2 with a common denominator is going to give me 3 pi over 2. So 3 pi over 2 I'm going to put way over here. This is going to be a period of 2 pi, so kind of a big graph here. And then the other thing I need to be able to find is my midpoint. So I'm going to do the midpoint by just kind of finding the average. So I'm going to take the number that's in front of pi here, so that's negative 1. And I'm going to add the number that's in front of pi here, that's 3. And I'm going to divide by 2, because with an average, you would say average 2 grades. You'd add those 2 grades together and divide by 2. So same concept here. That's going to give me 2 over 2, which gives me 1 pi over 2. So don't forget to go back and include the pi and the over 2 as you're going through. And then I need to take marks 2 and 4. So halfway between negative 1/2 and positive 1/2 is going to be right here at 0. And then I don't have to label this one up here, but it's going to be somewhere kind of just right in between right there. It's going to end up being at pi. All right, let's see here. The only other thing I need for this side is my amplitude of 2. So I'm going to be going up 2, and I'm going to be going down 2, down here to negative 3. All right, so now I'm ready to graph. I'm working with cosine, so I'm going to put a 0 at 2 and 4. Don't forget to move your zeros down one place. And then I want to start, I usually start up, but I'm going to start down because of that negative sign. So I'm going to start down 2, and then I'm going to go up 2, and then I'm going to go back down 2. And we'll try to make these graphs kind of nice and curvy. I mentioned in class before trying not to make them pumpkin teeth, or they're real jagged and going up and down. Try to make them nice and curvy and put an arrow on the end. They do continue to go on and on forever. All right, let's take a look at the other side. So on the other side, I'm going to take my negative pi over 2 that I have for my starting point, and I'm going to subtract 2 pi, my period. So that'll be negative pi over 2 minus 4 pi over 2. Put a little line in between those. And so that's going to give me negative 5 pi over 2. So I'll put that way down here, negative 5 pi over 2. All right, and let's go find our middle mark here. I didn't label these over here. Let's go ahead and do that. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this side's going to be a little bit more crunched over here just because I'm running out of space. So let's go find that middle mark. So mark number 3 right there. So I'm going to take my beginning point here and my beginning point here and divide by 2. So that's going to give me negative 6 over 2, and so that'll give me negative 3. So this one's going to be negative 3 pi over 2. All right, again, let's put in marks 2 and 4. I don't have to label those, and so that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so I'm going to go with zeros at 2 and 4. And notice that 5 and 1 overlapped right there so that they'll touch. And again, because of that reflection, we're going to start down. Thank you. And whoops, back up to that one. And back down to that point that we already have down there. And again, nice and curvy. Just like that. All right, so that was a good example of a graph of cosine. Just remember, if you didn't have that negative sign there, to go ahead and start up on that. All right, on 27, we've got a graph of tangent. So on 27, I'm working with 1/2 tangent of 2x plus 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and start again by filling in our chart with our amplitude. Remember that tangent doesn't have an amplitude. Amplitude is the idea of something going up and how far it goes before it turns, before it comes back down. Tangent never turns. Next, we need the period. So the period is just going to be pi over b. In this case, b is 2. But now in order to graph tangent using our shortcuts, we need to find the doubled period. So I need to double that thing or multiply by 2. And so really when I work with my graph, I'm going to be working with pi as my endpoint number over there. All right, I don't have a number being added or subtracted inside my parentheses, so no phase shift on this one. And I do have a vertical shift of up 3. All right, so let's get a little graph going here. The nice part about doubling that period then is that you only have to draw one set of these, and it'll give you 2 periods of tangent. All right, with no phase shift, I'm going to start right here at 0 pi, and I'm going to go ahead and mark my vertical shift of up 3. Let me make each little half be 1 right here so we make sure we can see a lot of our tangent graph. All right, so again, I'm going to put a little line right here that just reminds me to move my 0 line up 3 spaces. Again, it's not an asymptote. Just a quick reminder to myself, just like that. And then I'm going to go find my endpoint. So I'm going to take my starting point, 0 pi, and now I'm going to add for tangent my doubled period to it. So my endpoint over here is going to be pi. So let's make this one kind of big. We'll put pi way over there. And then halfway, so my middle mark right here, halfway between 0 and 1 would be 1/2, so pi over 2. And then we don't have to label 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so using my shortcuts, I have zeros for tangent at 1, 3, and 5. Don't forget to draw those up 3 for our